Uh, Welcome back after a long time of not meeting us. I hope you are ready and fresh for an exciting new adventure in the world of the Metaverse. With us is Mr. Maged Farrag, who will be taking us in a virtual and realistic tour about what the future may bring for technology in general, communications, and for also history and ancient Egypt. Mr. Farrag, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. First, it gives me great pleasure to be with you today, and I hope throughout the coming, I don't know how long, we will have a chance to walk through different use cases of the metaverse, VR, AR, MR, whatever divergent reality is out there. We'll try to put some, shed a light on, again, the different use cases and the different experiences. So let me start by a brief introduction about myself while we're playing an extract of the showreel from my company. My name is Maged Farrag. I'm currently the creative and managing director of 5DVR. This is the showreel of the company that I founded in 1994. I'm not going to ask how old were you in 1994. So. Anyway, so again, at that time, we came at the intersection of media and technology. We're developing interactive multimedia applications for various and different types of businesses, solutions, applications. And one of the very interesting, again, just to put it in context for that class, one of the very interesting projects or line of products that we worked in was using the technology for documentation of cultural heritage. We had a chance to work on very beautiful projects like the manuscript collection in Al-Azhar Library, the manuscript collection in Dar al-Kutub, as well as the Greco-Roman Museum. Again, these at that stage in time, using technology to document cultural heritage and to distribute it on CD-ROMs and so on was quite fascinating. We came a long way. In 2011, we started a joint venture with a Danish gaming company. And that was the entry point, I would say, into the world of gaming and augmented reality. We're fortunate to work with companies like Disney and Lego, prototyping and trying to put different use cases for the technology at the time with their products and applications. Now let me take you to the showreel from my current company, 5DVR, which is founded in 2016. This company is focused mainly on providing solutions and applications within the immersive computing space. We're developing augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, whatever type of reality that we can manipulate. We try always to put that in context for different clients in different use cases. We are exploring more or less the horizontal landscape of the technology, so we're not settled on a certain type of product or services. And we're always seeking what's new, and we're always trying to incorporate that into our lines of offering. We're proud to have delivered projects, I would say, all over the world. Again, in that space, in the immersive computing space, it's quite exciting, it's quite new, and we're always exploring new ideas and new cases for training, for events, for marketing, and for cultural heritage. And again, I'll put some focus on the use cases for using the technology in general in cultural heritage, as I know this is the prime interest for most of the attendees. These are just some extract of some projects that we did within the cultural heritage domain, whether it's virtual museum experiences. And now let's dig into the meat. So, how many of you have tried the VR before? A lot, great. How many of you have tried AR? How many have tried mixed reality? Did any of you try the HoloLens, Magic Leap, anything of the sort? Okay, so we have a winner. Okay, let's start by the definition. I'm sure you're all aware of the difference between augmented reality and virtual reality and mixed reality. So in principle, in augmented reality, the world becomes your screen. So you are displaying virtual elements, computer-generated content, on top of the reality that you see. In virtual reality, the screen becomes your world. So you are totally absorbed or immersed in a virtual experience, totally virtual experience that has no reference with the world that you're living in, or the real reality, let's say. And mixed reality, it's pretty much like augmented reality, but you have some sort of understanding of the space around you. So the virtual objects don't just come, they are coming out to display content that is relevant to the actual space where you're living in. And again, we'll see some of the use cases of the example of the different technologies. This is one of the latest VR headsets that was released in 1992, 93, 94, within that range. This was done by Sega, and it was introduced into the consumer show in the US, but it never made it at the time. One of the main problems at the time, this was too early at that point in time for the technology. So the quality of the experience was simply too bad, so it couldn't kick off. So they just launched it, they had some promotional videos, and it never made it to the market. And if we look at the history of virtual reality, or immersive computing, or metaverse, so again, these are all different terms of more or less the same context or concept. You can dig it back into a lot of novels, a lot of fiction, movies, where the idea of just exploring an alternative reality where you are more or less a superhuman, you can do much more, has always been there. And it has been realized only maybe in the 2013, 2014 with the early prototypes of Oculus. And this, I remember, was one of the expectations or broad estimations for how far this technology can go. This was around 2016, and you see that was the estimations for 2020. It didn't go that far, but again, I'm just showing you to show the different aspects of the technology. There were AR theme parks, AR games, enterprise AR, AR film, AR voice, and of course, retail and commerce. So there's been a lot of aspects of the technology that we're not really quite aware of. It didn't go that far, I have to say. But again, with the impact of COVID, it did good to some sectors, and maybe technology in general, it boosted the digital transformation and digital adaptation, and definitely VR and AR and this whole XR domain has been one of them, and expected to grow rapidly, especially after this whole metaverse hype. So this is one of the technologies or markets that will grow very fast in the coming few years. And I'm a believer this is not just a technology or just a new medium. This is a new, I would say, way of communication. Supposedly will not, well, at a certain point in time, will not communicate the same way we're doing today, will not learn, will not work the same way we're doing. There will be a lot of other, again, empowerment using the technology where you can do things better and faster. These are just some of the headsets that are available in the market. That's not all of them. Again, to tell you briefly about how Facebook acquired Oculus and how did all of that happen. Oculus started on Kickstarter. They were asking for around $100,000 or something like that to realize their headset. They got around $2 million in crowdsource funding. And then actually it was acquired by Facebook less than a year after that for almost $3 billion. So just you can imagine the scale and the magnitude of this technology and how much investment is being put to it. And it's improving in a very rapid way. So these are all mostly consumer headsets that are connected, get connected to a PC, and this is one type of headset. But then you have the standalone headset, which is like the Oculus Quest, which is already it's a real game changer. And just to show you how fast this is developing, this is just a comparison between the first version of Oculus and the second, and they came almost less than a year apart, and this is how much the quality is improving. And this is, again, one of the high-end enterprise headsets that sells for more than $7,000, and they say it matches the human eye resolution. One of the promises of the metaverse is that at a certain point in time, you cannot differentiate reality, the real world, and the virtual reality, and you cannot achieve that without having actually that kind of fidelity or that kind of quality. It almost matches 45 times the resolution of the highest VR, enterprise VR headset out there in the market. This is another new headset that was just released, I believe, a couple of months ago by Canon. It's made for enterprise, and this one sells for $500,000. Just again, to give you an idea about how this technology is developing and how far it's going and how expensive it can sell for. And it's not going to stop there. This is where Samsung and Stanford are actually working on creating the resolution for the screen of 10,000 pixels per inch. Again, to put it in context, the highest resolution on any of the iPhones that you have, maybe iPhone 13 Max Pro, I don't know, has less than 500 pixels per inch. So with that kind of resolution, you can literally put the screens very close to the eye and you can experience, or maybe even put it on a contact lens. So this is how fast it's moving and how fast it's developing. So this is all one thing, and this is a whole different thing. Now this is the mixed reality headsets, or the mixed reality, the HoloLens and the Magic Leap and the Meta. And this is the kind of experience that you get. So in principle, sorry for this gibberish. So in principle, you put on a headset that gets you, again, it scans the world around you, so it has spatial awareness of where you are and what kind of environment. It can track your hands, so you can interact with the virtual objects by simply touching them in the air. And it's simply like magic. If you haven't tried them, it's very hard to tell you how that feels. And this is one of the Microsoft, this HoloLens is brought by Microsoft. In one of their conferences, they just put the concept of holoportation, where they can, actually this presenter was doing a conference or a talk in Japan, and at the same time she was doing the talk while she was in the US, and using artificial intelligence, they used somehow to let the avatar speak in Japanese in real time while she was speaking in English. So again, this is just a glimpse of the future and what's there behind. Another headset that's, again, with the same spatial awareness and spatial recognition is Magic Leap. This was acquired by Google. And as you can see, you can put virtual objects behind real world objects, and that gives the sense of immersion at a whole different scale and level. And if we see Google and Microsoft, the missing piece of the puzzle is definitely Apple. And there's been rumors, and now it's more or less confirmed reality, that they are working on their headsets. The developer community has been following Apple whenever they go for a patent or they release anything, or even sometimes the folder structure in the new iPhones, there is a notation that there is a glass coming somewhere. So like all the community is, again, expecting, or I would say, really looking forward to having the Apple Glass. Because the Apple Glass, when they come, they will not just release a headset in the market. They will create a whole ecosystem, like they did with the smartphones in 2007. So this is what we're looking forward to. And they will just, again, like the same way Apple has been doing business, they will not do a prototype or a development kit or anything of the sort. They will just start from the top, I believe so. And again, this is one thing that will totally change everything, because again, this will be a consumer product rather than an enterprise-grade product. So this will be in supposedly next year or the year after, it will be actually released to the market. Okay, and this is the reality. This is another project by Facebook. It's called Project Area. It's very similar to the HoloLens in terms of the capability, the scanning capability, the recognition capability of all of that. But as you can see, the form factor of this glasses, you can even say headset, it's very similar to any glasses that you can simply put on. So you don't have that awkwardness of putting a really bulky technology like alien-like gadget on your head. And this is actually being put on in research for, I think, a year and something now. They actually have all of Facebook employees put this headset or glasses on for research purposes. The main issue that they are addressing is the privacy. So while this headset cannot really display anything yet on the glasses, they're actually capturing the whole space around you and recording that and creating some sort of a digital twin. And they are trying to explore how will that impact the privacy issues and all of that by trying this out on their employees first. So if you look at how we started capturing the world with satellites and then with the aerial in cars like Google and even with backpacks, now with the AI and wearables, we'll be creating a digital twin of the whole world that to the scale of 1 meter, that responds in real time to the changes that are happening. One of the use cases that they put that even if you are talking about an auditorium like this one, and we have a digital twin of that based on the continuous capturing of people who are putting on the headsets. Even if the chairs, if the arrangement changes, this will be reflected in real time in the digital twin.
What is aerial? You mean drones?
Yes, of course.
What do you mean cars?
Cars like Google cars, Google car that has the 360 camera that captures. So these are just different resolutions of how we're capturing the planet. And the idea of the digital twin is quite interesting because this is part of the metaverse and how it's shaping. That you will find for the whole world to start with, and even for countries, there are certain cities that have created the digital twin. Tokyo has done that, and they are stepping into the metaverse. South Korea started already to do some government services through the metaverse. So the idea of the digital twin is very interesting, and there is a lot of aspects on how we can actually make use of that. A digital twin, digital Tokyo that represents to the actual Tokyo. So you have on the metaverse in the digital world. So it's yes, on the cloud, on servers, on the computers, and sometimes with the sensors and all of that, it can respond to the real Tokyo in real time. So if there are changes that are happening in real Tokyo, you can see that in virtual Tokyo, and you can run simulations in the digital twin that are actually based on the real numbers and the real data coming from the real world. It's
But I mean, even with like Google Maps, there's a lag. I realize, for example, sometimes Google Maps is not up to date. If I do the satellite, if a car moves in real life, on Google Maps it doesn't move, for example. How are they going to do that?
Let me get to that point. There is at the end slide the answer, I think, to most of this. One of the promises, again, of the metaverse, and this is something that Facebook Reality Labs, they're now the research department that's working on this whole metaverse, is lifelike avatars. And this, for you who have tried or haven't tried, in VR, if you are just putting on a headset and seeing a 360 experience, this is one thing. If you're putting on a headset and you can feel your body, if you have your hand in VR and then you start moving and you see that you are moving, this is another thing. But if you are in VR and there's another person, another real person that is represented and that you can communicate in VR, whether that looks like an avatar, a cartoon character or whatever, that gives a whole different level of presence. Imagine if that was a lifelike avatar that looks like you and that is present in the virtual world with facial expressions, with lip sync that talks like you, and maybe with AI can even talk without you talking, so this is where it's heading. And Facebook is not the only one who's working on lifelike avatars. Unreal, it's one of the major game engines that used to develop different kinds of games and also solutions and applications, especially in the metaverse, are working on the meta-humans, where again, a lifelike avatar is the promise. This is, again, another very interesting gadget that the Facebook Reality Lab is working on how we could interact in AR and VR. So they have this bracelet that reads the ECG, some kind of electronic or electric signals from the brain, and then that responds in virtual world. And one of the interesting experiments that they did was actually somebody who didn't have, his hand was amputated, and they put this bracelet and they could connect it with a virtual screen where he could actually move the virtual hand on the screen just using this bracelet. So this is, again, when we're talking about the mixed reality mainly and all of the different developments and evolutions. But still in our phones at the moment, the augmented reality is getting more and more powerful. There is the AR kit for Apple by Apple and AR Core by Google. And they're simply, again, gaining more and more power, learning more and more, and with each release they have more capabilities. Now they can, as if you know the Microsoft Kinect, as if you have that within your phone camera using these libraries. So you can have tracking, like people track motion tracking. You can have object occlusion, and especially with the new iPhones, that's not too good. But anyway, with the new iPhones that have the LiDAR scanner, there are much more capabilities and much more power that you can do. And definitely, if we talk about augmented reality, the filters that you have on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all of that, they are very powerful, and they can, and again, they are getting more and more because they're relying on machine learning and AI. So the more they're being used, the more they get powerful. And I see them brilliant in the way that you can create an experience, to communicate an emotion, to interact with a product, or simply tell a story. It's amazing, and the distribution is just right there on all of our phones. And there's been a talk of what's called the camera war. So there's a camera war on which platform will actually make the best out of the camera and just make it more or less associated with each platform.
The camera war on the hardware, or you mean on the platform?
On the platform level, like Snapchat, Facebook, and all that, they are fighting. And there's another concept called the face war. So all of these manufacturers for headset, they are fighting for who's going to win the face war, who's going to be on our faces. Now let's think about some of the use cases for the technology. And of course, entertainment is the first one that comes to mind. And it's picked up really rapidly. This is the promise for immersive computing. It's a whole new level of entertainment. Where you are the hero, where you step in this virtual world and with your friends maybe complete or compete different tasks. And although, of course, this was hit, especially the location-based entertainment was hit hardly by COVID, it's picked up, and actually the numbers are now back to normal, almost before COVID. And of course, when we talk about training, this has been one of the best use cases for the technology. Because especially in training and education, the best way to learn anything is simply by doing it. And this is the promise of the technology. You step in VR and you can do stuff that you can, sometimes you cannot really do in reality, or sometimes it's too dangerous or too expensive. But you can do stuff and iterate and do it once and twice until you learn. And these are just some examples of how the US Army is using the technologies. They're using the HoloLens supposedly for the training. Walmart, they rolled out a massive training program using virtual reality for their employees, especially on Black Friday, and how to handle the stress on Black Friday. Kentucky Fried Chicken was doing a training for their employees on how to cook their recipes. And even, of course, again, it's when it comes to healthcare, was one of the fastest sectors to adapt to the technology. And training in healthcare, of course, it makes sense. When you have a patient that you are training on, in virtual patients, you can try once and twice, but in real life, it's not, you don't have that privilege. And that one on the left bottom corner is quite interesting. This was a training that they did for the human resource department at one of the organizations on how to fire an employee. So this is one of the things that VR has been very powerful at. It's about empathy, about communicating an emotion and feeling that you are there. This is one of the things that I think, again, with the technology, it's quite powerful. This was a Russian farmer who tried VR with his cows to give them like a more bright sky, hoping that this will give more milk. I have to ask. Exactly. And the US Army is also using the technology on the dogs. So they have some sort of headset or research program where they want to put a headset on the war dogs so they can actually instruct them. So the trainer of the dog can see what the dog's seeing and can give them notation or give them specific orders. Okay, away from the war, the war dogs, let's delve into art. And this has been a very beautiful use case for that they've done at the Louvre, where they did special scanning of the Mona Lisa, using different types of scanning just to know how it was composed. And they actually reconstructed the same way, with the same position, how she was sitting and how it was drawn and all of that. And you can just see the art from a whole different perspective that was simply not possible without the technology. And when it comes to sports, of course, it's picking up rapidly. You can now have NBA to actually see live streaming of NBA games in almost all of the virtual reality and even mixed reality headsets that are out there. This is a stadium scale augmented reality experience where they had captured, or let's say volumetric capturing, and I'll tell you about volumetric capturing in a bit, these athletes, and they just put it at that scale in the stadium, and all the audience, all the goers can simply view that experience simultaneously at the same time on their phones. And again, this is one of the aspects where 5G is going to play a huge role, and maybe also answer some of Nancy's question about. And this is how volumetric capturing works. And again, it's been used very, I would say, very effectively in cultural heritage, where you can recreate characters and put them in virtual reality or in augmented reality to tell the story from a different perspective. So you have cameras, a lot of cameras positioned around the actor or the performer, and we simply, it's pretty much like capturing a chroma or a green screen video, but in 3D. So you have this 3D asset and you can view it from different angles and people can interact with it in real time. This is me in volumetric capturing. I've done a small test. Actually, we are trying at the moment to establish the first volumetric capturing studio in Egypt and maybe in Africa.
What does volumetric capture mean?
To 3D scan a person doing a certain act, performing a certain, I don't know, whatever scene that will help in whatever context that it's put in. So it's simply like shooting on a green screen, but shooting in 3D. So instead of shooting just flat 2D video on green screen, you have like a 3D character that you can position in the scene and even manipulate and play with in a different way and form. That if you want to use it in traditional editing and post-production, but with the technology, with augmented and virtual reality, you can see this in real time and virtual reality, and so it's more believable, it's more real because the characters are not 3D graphics or 3D generated, so they are real. So that's the big advantage. This is a very interesting holo ride where this has actually just received many rounds of funding. This project to turn the rides of the car into, again, a roller coaster-like experience. I think with this we will not get a lot of, are we there yet? Not that much. And of course, even with the self-driving cars, maybe this will create a whole new level of entertainment. Not on our streets, but somewhere, maybe that's possible. Okay, so now back to the hype, the metaverse. All of this has been happening for a while. All of these pieces are being put together for maybe 4 or 5 or maybe more. But again, at that point in time, with all the investment that Facebook has put into the virtual reality in general, and just changing the concept, it's happening, the concept of the internet and how we're going to interact with the devices. It's not going to simply be a simple 2D device or 2D screen that I just watch from the outside. I will walk in that kind of experience, or I'll simply put on a headset or a glasses that responds to the world and have that digital layer overlaid in context with the different touch points. And it's like Facebook has presented it. It's for for social, for gaming, for work, for retail, so in principle, it will be like a whole different medium. But it's not only Facebook who's doing it. Facebook have their own meta or version of the metaverse. This is Microsoft. They have what's called Microsoft Mesh, and it's all their more or less also version of the metaverse, where it's more focused about work. So they have introduced or will introduce 3D avatars in Teams, and later on you can have unbelievable types of interaction with all kinds of people from different devices on the same subject. And this is NVIDIA, which is the largest manufacturer for graphics card. They have what's called the Omniverse. So when we talk about the metaverse, it's better say there's like, it's like saying the internet. Who built the internet? It's like a lot of people built the idea of the internet and they put it together. So when it comes to the metaverse, it will not just be the Facebook who's doing the metaverse. It's all of these players are putting a lot of investment, a lot of focus into their organizations to actually create this metaverse. And now let's get to some use cases about culture and history and how technology has been used to relive history, and especially with special focus, of course, about our beloved Egypt. This experience was created by the same team or the same company who has done the Mona Lisa experience. So they actually made 3D scan of Khufu. This was, I think, part of a bigger project where they have multiple parties involved. So they actually made a whole 3D scan of the pyramid, of the Great Pyramid of Khufu. And they have this free roaming experience multiplayer. So you can have 5 or 6 people stepping at the same time in VR, and then we can all interact in VR. And free roaming is meaning like they have like 100 square meter, 150 square meter, where people literally walk to experience different parts of the experience. This was just released, I think, like 6 months ago. It was quite recent. And along with the touring exhibition of Tutankhamun, celebrating 100 years from discovering the tomb, they had this amazing seated simulation experience where they let the guests put on a headset, and then the simulator of the seat just moves along with the movement of the camera to explore the tomb of Tutankhamun just the way it was discovered 100 years ago. And it's not only about the technology, about the gadgets and all of that. It's also about the quality of how they created the experience, the 3D capturing for these assets, or the photogrammetry, and getting that level of scan for the tomb, this quality. It's unbelievable. Americans, yes. Curiosity Stream. Actually, this was made. They had multiple parties, but again, as you will see, this was touring with the Tutankhamun Enter the Tomb touring exhibition. So this one, for example, was in Saatchi Gallery in UK. And I remember at that time I went in and I tried to book a ticket, and they were fully booked for quite some time. It was quite popular with all those seats.
Wow, but no Egyptians working there. I mean, Egyptians are not yet involved even in Tutankhamun.
Let me get to that. We're trying. This is another amazing experience. Actually, we have invited the creator of this experience to the film festival when we created the VR section at the film festival. So in that case, they used the latest scanning and photogrammetry to create a replica of Nefertari tomb in unbelievable quality. And again, like sometimes it's very hard to explain things from just videos, especially with this type of technology. You have to see it in virtual reality. When you get that close to the wall and you can see the quality of all the pharaonic paintings and pharaonic inscriptions on the wall, it's just amazing. Now these are actually our own work references within the same domain of culture and history. This was the Egyptian Pavilion that we created in Milano in 2015 for the World Expo. We created the whole pavilion from start to end. I would say, and not even only on the physical level. On the physical, we created also the online presence, the Facebook pages, the website, and all of that. And that pavilion had multiple attractions or touch points that would more or less take the user on a journey from the moment he steps into the pavilion, and the story is told using different mediums and technologies, starting from augmented reality, touch screens, holograms, broadcast AR, even Kinect photo booth. So with all of these put together in a way where there is an elevation to the experience and there's some sort of expectations at each touch point, and at the end, I would say the cherry on top was that the visitors would be the heroes themselves when they stand in front of that screen and they start putting on the costumes of the ancient Egyptians from different eras. And that had a huge impact on social media, because the users would share their photos on the Facebook page, and then they will have to come back to find these photos and share to their friends and all of that. So it was quite an interesting, and we had more than 20,000 photos, I think, that were shared. This is one of our projects that we did actually for the presidency of Egypt. We worked on the VR and AR parts for the presidency of Egypt website and mobile app. And in that section, we had a virtual tour of all the historical presidential palaces. And for me, it was amazing to make this kind of data and this kind of treasures, these kinds of treasures available to the public on the web and on the mobile app. And these palaces are just pieces of art that you cannot... Another part of the same app for the presidency of Egypt, where you scan all the banknotes, the Egyptian banknotes starting from 10 pounds all the way to 200 pounds. You can see in augmented reality the actual objects that are present on the banknote from both sides, and then you can see different information, because I don't think many of us know any of the monuments that are there on those banknotes. This is yet another project that we developed a few years ago. It was called Virtour. This was with the CultNat, the National Center for Documentation of Culture and Natural History, with the ERI, Electronics Research Institute, ITI. So we had a lot of partners in this project. And the whole concept was to develop multiple applications. One of them was a game actually telling about the Opet Festival that was celebrated in the Karnak Avenue of the Sphinx opening. So one game that tells all the details about the Opet Festival, where you are trying to save the day and make it happen. Another application was simply a virtual tour in Karnak and Luxor using stereoscopic images. Another application was using a virtual museum where we did some 3D scans of the temples, the statues and some of the columns in the temples, and we put it there in a way that you can interact with. And I remember when I was sitting there with one of our partners, and we had, and I noticed a small girl, maybe she was 9 or 10, coming out with her parents from that booth, and she was bouncing up and down and said, "Daddy, Daddy, I visited Karnak." And that, to me, was like the total success of that project. To give this, again, accessibility for people to travel and see places and experience stuff that they wouldn't, or they would have hard time to try in real life is quite a blessing. This is one of the very recent under development project, again, under the cultural and heritage domain. We're working with the Abdeen Palace Museum to document the items that are there, to work on, again, a website and a mobile app to make all of this accessible to different audience. And it was interesting for us to explore, because there are different pieces that you should capture in different types and form. So we use different types of photography or capturing. So we use 3D scanning and photogrammetry for items where they need to be in 3D. We use turntable for items that you can just view and experience the whole item simply by putting it on a turntable. And of course, in augmented reality, you put all of these in the real world, and you have or create your own museum. And also for some of the items, for the oil paintings, for example, we did this, what's called gigapixel shooting. So we shoot the painting at a gigapixel resolution. That makes you get to zoom to a level where you can even feel the brush stroke. And I believe this is not only good for the display and dissemination of information, this is very good for the documentation. Like it happened when the church was burned in Paris, and then they reconstructed it based on the actual scans that were done in one of the games. So I think just having this kind of 3D or 2D or gigapixel representation of all of these items will be a good reference point for restoration if needed at any point in time. And now 5G. This is the answer to your question. 5G, the promise of 5G with all of this, again, power, having this kind of bandwidth, low latency, you can connect so many devices, much more than you can connect today. So all of this, I think, will give a lot of power to this immersive computing space, and this is when I think in not so long, we will be wearing these headsets that respond to streaming content that will be specific to certain locations and certain touch points that are based on my interests. So this is the kind of future that's the near future that's waiting for us. And of course, also, it's not only about 5G. 5G is quite a big enabler for this, but when you combine the technology, the extended reality, with IoT, with AI, with blockchain, with all of this, when all of this is put together, and this will happen, you will find new use cases that we can't even think of at the moment. Thank you, and if you have any questions, I'd be very happy to answer.
And thank you everyone for listening. Now we open the floor for questions. Yes?
هو دلوقتي انا عارف ان في مشكله ان هو لو مثلا في حاجه زي الايفنتر بتاع الريس بتاع ال 5 جي ايا كانت هي ايه، يعني انا مش فاهم الميكانيزم وراها بالظبط، بس لو في حاجه بطريقه انت لو واقف ورا شجره مش هتشتغل.
أنا ما سمعتش الموضوع الشجرة ده بس.
مش الشجره بالذات، يعني لو في حاجه بطريقه هيجي فيزيكال اوبجكت هتبلوك الريس بتاع.
لا يعني متهيألي دي إشاعات مغرضة. لا يعني ما سمعتش عن القصة دي خالص، بالعكس يعني أنا شفت في دبي مثلا في المبنى بتاع اتصالات كانوا عاملين تيست ال 5G بالسبيد بتاعته عامل ازاي، اوريدي اتعمل له رول اوت في كذا كونتري. يعني لو عرفت الرقم كمان عدد البلاد اللي اوريدي عملت رول اوت لل 5G، احنا يعني لسه قدامنا جايز شويه مش كتير، بس ما يتهيأليش ان نوع المشاكل ده هيبقى اوبسكل يعني. شكرا. طيب الدكتور ممكن
بعد في 4 جيب بواحدة.
My 5G even faster. لا it's just
يعني version 4 version 5.
لا And I'll tell you about one of the use cases that they were talking about in 5G using the technology that they said maybe يبقى في جراح في أمريكا بيعمل سيرجري لحد في اليابان، هو هنا لابس النظارة بالفيرتشوال رياليتي بيعمل الأوبريشن in VR، وفي روبوت الناحية التانية بيرسبوند، يعني it will get to that type of connection speed and low latency أو no latency حتى. يعني البروميس بتاع بالذات الليتنسي it will be lower than the human latency. This is the actually yes, this is what's happening. Its speed is almost 1,000 if not more times faster than 4G مثلا.
طب ما كده بقى we're gonna do like travel through time. You could arrive at the speed.
ما هو ده الميتافيرس بقى. ما خلاص بقى احنا يعني لسه كنت بقرا ارتكل امبارح كان الناس بتكويشن ان هيبقى في وقت الناس هتسبند مور تايم in virtual reality than in the real world. ان ال virtual reality is better. You can escape, you can go the place اللي انت عايز تحبه. فده هيحصل في وقت مش بعيد ان الناس هتقعد في الفيرتشوال وورلد اكتر ما هي بتقعد في العالم الحقيقي.
Which is already happening.
Which is already happening
Without all this immersive technology.
Yes.
Okay, يعني if you can compute the amount of time that the children spend on the Xbox and the games and social media,
yes,
and combine these with the potentials and the possibilities of the future of the metaverse, then we don't need to communicate you and I at all.
والchildren ليه حضرتك ما احنا the amount of time that we spend on our phones and how much the frequency of how much we check the phone going from WhatsApp to Facebook back to your email and checking if somebody called you. I mean, just even adults use that. But there was also like this discussion going in some webinar, and they asked the same question. What about the negative impact of people spending less time in reality and just escaping to the virtual world? And the answer to that was that some studies say that the average time spent on TV for the American adults is around 7.5 hours a day. So this is passive time that you're just sitting on a couch getting content in a non-active way, while in VR you're actually moving, you're doing some physical stuff. So maybe it's better to take some time out of this 7.5 hours.
This is almost like the cigarette companies manufacturing research that cigarettes are actually better for you.
Or producing a healthier way to smoke, مثلا. Yes.
Yeah.
Or like avoiding obesity, for example.
Yeah. Why avoid it? Enjoy yourself and then go to an obesity control center and spend your money 2 times. My question is, if anybody has any questions? Okay. If you were like me, born much earlier than most of you were even created yet, you'd be interested in the new show that ABBA is redoing in England. Okay, in which they are somehow combining their old selves with the new technology to simultaneously make live shows with their avatars, I think sometimes in June next year. And they are preparing for that. So are they?
They're young avatars or
They're young avatars.
They can.
They will move now in their current bodies, but exactly like the movie, the Avatar, they will be shown live as a hologram with their old selves, performing new songs today. So if this can happen today, then I'm sure that we can recreate Isis and Osiris and all the famous acts of the ancient Egyptians today.
Yes, of course. I'm sure you've all seen the Kulthum and Abd al-Halim hologram. So this was done in a very similar way, where they created the avatar or the 3D character of the singer and even put it to sing and act. And with the deep fake, like you're saying, you can get to a very, very realistic results. And especially in entertainment, there's been a couple of concerts that were done in fortnights. One of them, I can't remember the performer, but he's got more than 12 million viewers attending his concert in the virtual world. So, yeah.
The danger with that, if you cannot distinguish, then I can imagine some of the students in Nile University were doing research on that deep fake, is that you can actually recreate conversations between politicians that never happened, and they would seem like they happen, and you can create disaster political crisis.
Yes. Deep fake is actually out there and getting very powerful with every iteration or every trial that's being made.
So simultaneously with the development of the technology, that if there is no ethical and moral code like with mutation and genetic engineering, if there is no parallel course on the ethics of using these technologies, you reach a stage where you can reach chaos.
100%, but I believe we've gone through this learning curve of with the different iterations of the technology when the internet came, and then we found out that there's a lot of privacy issues, so we had to go back. And so I think this whole learning curve that we have gone through will give us better, at least approach or better understanding of what can and cannot be done. But I believe there is a point where you have to make mistakes. You have to make this iterative process where okay, you try something and then you find that there are some negative implications or it's not working the way it should. So you go back and make some regulations, rearrange things, recreate stuff to make it work. So without this iterative process, I think there's no way to get forward. So failure is just a step towards success, I think.
I don't think we can rely on market forces. Yes, Nancy.
I have a million questions since obviously I don't know, I mean, how their brains are not functioning in the morning. But I mean, first of all, what about the danger of wearing the glasses in real life? I mean, if I'm wearing my glasses and I'm driving, then I'm going to crash. If I'm wearing my, I mean, how is this not obstructive? How is it reality?
Yeah, the glasses that you will wear will not obstruct, or you will see the reality as it is, but with, again, just an overlay of computer-generated content that will be responding to that. So, for example, if you're putting on the glasses, I'm just imagining this, while you're driving, it will be put on a certain mode where it doesn't distract you as such. On the contrary, will tell you something that is relevant to you driving. So we'll tell you, okay, you have to get to the lane on the right because you're going in that direction. You have to be aware that there's some, I don't know, like most of the stuff that you're getting on Google Maps, but you'll get it in your eyes, in your face.
Yeah, but that's what they say about, for example, not driving and texting. But the truth is, it does lead to accidents. So I just don't know how they're going to solve this issue.
Yeah, and,
wearing my glasses and walking and bumping and people in the road.
actually, one of the tests that they did with Vario, this headset that I tell you was $8,000. They did this test with the Volvo. So they put their headset with the driver driving the car, and they had put some computer-generated content simulating like a deer crossing the road, so he has to stop and stuff like that. And it worked. It all depends on how you're putting it, and also, again, there will be an iteration where, okay, it will be put in a certain way or a certain shape and form, and then accidents will happen, and then you'll go back, like self-driving cars. I mean, there's no way to get to the point where you can trust that a self-driving car can take you from point A to point B without having all of this, iterations and trials and accidents happening, and then they're not, and then happening again. This is something that I think is quite human, and with every generation of technology, with every new device that comes out there, you just, okay, you're concerned that this might be dangerous, this will kill me while I'm driving or whatever, and then you realize, okay, it might be dangerous, but not that bad. But then again, this whole iterative process, trying things out and seeing what works and what doesn't work and put it again back, and this is how it goes.
We had a question here.
هو ايه اوطى latency وصلوا لها 5G؟
ايه اوطى ايه؟
latency.
latency؟ بيسأل ايه اوطى latency؟
الدكتور
يعني قرب ل 1 ملي سكند. 1 ملي سكند قرب لحاجه.
واضح انك مهتم بال 5G. بس كويس يعني.
Maged, I have another question.
Please.
How come Mark Zuckerberg looks like a douche? I mean, he doesn't look like the real. I mean, is this what they're promising us in the metaverse? Because I'd rather stay in reality if that's the case. He looks like a cartoon. I mean, why does he look like a normal human being?
But this is the project that they're working on, اللي هو lifelike avatars. This will happen. And this, the one that they put was mainly just a promotional video that was not really done in the technology. It was just done to promote the concept. And if you see, they actually had multiple versions of the characters. And they put it on purpose. So if you see here, in this one, they had actually a lifelike avatar and one who's done a totally cartoon avatar. So this will be the possibility. You will choose your own avatar. If you want to appear like yourself, you'll have that option. If you want to appear like a cartoon character, you could. If you want to change your outfit, you could. And this is, again, it's like I was saying at the beginning, South Korea is already putting some of its services on the metaverse. Nike has already bought the trademarks, so you can buy original shoes or from Nike on the metaverse. So that this will be, there will be a lot of... And wear them on the metaverse, yes, yes. And maybe NFTs is, and virtual real estate. We have a question. We'll give you a prize.
What's the impact of VR system on like our health? Any technology دلوقتي بتأثر على الهيلث بتاعتنا ولا دي حاجة more advanced؟
اكيد هيبقى فيه امباكت، اكيد هيبقى فيه نيجاتيف امباكت. بس متهيألي يعني حتى التكنولوجي and now we know it has this kind of negative impact on ourselves. This is not stopping us from using it. Actually, yes. يعني there's been going in parallel مع the release of the technology. يعني أول ما النظارات طلعت, they put a warning, you cannot put it if you are 13, younger than 13 years old. And this is not there anymore. So at the beginning كان عندهم concerns إن الأطفال اللي لسه ما كونوش عينيهم بالكامل ممكن virtual reality تعمل distortion أو تعمل مشاكل. It didn't happen, so they released it to children. Now more and more children are using it, even at younger age, and they're using it for even children with problems. اللي عندهم ADHD واللي عندهم autism, they have this kind of experiences where they can tackle issues with these children in virtual reality أحسن من اللي في الحقيقة. هيبقى في negative impacts definitely. زي with every evolution بيحصل الكهرباء ليها negative impact على فكرة, وال 4G وال 5G you know what I mean, السموك اللي احنا عايشينه كل ده ليه negative impact. But again we've come to a point in time where you'll just have to adapt to this one way or the other, and you'll have to take it in iterations so you'll know how to make it better to minimize this negative impact somehow.
So because of time considerations, I think we would like to thank Engineer Maged, and we'd like to take 2 volunteers to try the VR.
Oh yes, if somebody wants to try some.
Why don't we begin by those who ask questions? So Omar and Malak start first.
بس ملك انت خايفة
هي هتقول لنا بقى إذا كان في negative impact ولا لا. So Malak and Omar, and then and Omar Mustafa will select the 2 most obedient students in the class and disregard all those who are talking. Okay? Our sections for AHCS will begin at 11 inshallah. Same rooms.
Touch and smell. يلا يا ملك. هي متصورة أصلا بالكاميرا على اليوتيوب، فهي هتطلع بالنضارة ولا من غير؟ لا في 2.
شوفها ثلاثة على اليوتيوب. شوفها ثلاثة على اليوتيوب.
بس عادة احنا